Hi, this is Shane Bryan from the Bad Boys Podcast. While the Bad Boys Podcast is on a break, I decided to launch a brand new show featuring interviews with some amazing guests that we've had, as well as new interviews that I've done on my radio show on LAFM. I've had so many interviews that I've done and so many more planned now. The show is called A Long Way to the Top, and if you'd like to hear more, then search for Long Way to the Top on the platform that you're listening to right now. Enjoy this special Bad Boys presentation of Long Way to the Top. This is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. In the words of the immortal AC/DC, it is harder than it looks. These interviews will give you a glimpse into the lives of the artists that we've sung along with, danced and rocked out to. Some go deep into their past and others celebrate their recent releases. But all of them show that regardless of who you are, it's always a long way to the top. This week's guest is an artist who was christened by Sid Vicious after a big night out with the title deserved of a legendary reggae artist, yet his music has been described as a fusion of post-punk, performance poetry and sound landscapes. Jah Wobble, born John Wardle, was the one-time bass player of Public Image Limited with John Lydon, worked with artists like U2's The Edge, Brian Eno, Can, Ministry, Killing Joke, and now has a brand new album created with the help of Jon Klien from Souxsie and the Banshees. Enjoy Long Way to the Top with Jah Wobble. Jah Wobble joining us on Long Way to the Top. How are you, mate?
I'm good, really good, Shane. Yeah,
I did that just as you took a sip of the coffee. That's I do that every time.
yes, tea. Yeah, I don't. The only time I have strong coffee, and I do like lots of strong coffees early in the morning.
Yeah.
So as soon as I get up, I must have at least 4 or 5 double espressos.
Wow.
To get going, which is quite extreme. And the only other time is if I've got a show and I feel not nervous, I'll drink 2 or 3 espressos, double espressos.
Yeah.
That's on the rider. Good quality coffee espresso available backstage.
Yes.
So I'll have a couple of that just to get me wired a little bit and nervous. That's just strong. I don't do drugs. I don't drink.
Yeah.
So caffeine's the only thing that I use in that way, which is fair enough. I mean, the footballs. My son was a professional footballer for 5 minutes when he was very young. My younger boy, and they'd all hit the red ball before training. You know, it's not like I don't. Caffeine's sort of acceptable to me, but I don't drink it all through the day because you just get wired and it's not pleasant. You know.
Yeah, yeah. You went on record, saying that you did give up alcohol quite a while back, and you've been sober now for many years.
Oh, yeah, 37 years, that time in October for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Well done. Now, firstly, I've got to say, I've been listening to the album. Sensational album. This is a real sort of, I guess, it's almost like you've gone back to the past, but you've infused some of the more sort of modern techniques as well. It's a real sort of fusion of the punk days, but with that modern spin.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you're so right. I mean, one factor nowadays, you can work 10 times quicker than you used to be able to, you know. And you've got the modern production techniques that you can make a quite modern sound, an up-to-date sound, you know, this big fat productions. But obviously there's also I can play a bit of bass. I like to play real bass, obviously. And Jon Klien's a very good guitarist.
Yeah,
we're both quite old school because we're of an age. I think I've got the edge on. I'm a bit older than Jon. Jon Klien is the foremost kind of punk rock guitarist guy around.
Now we're talking Jon Klien from Souxsie and the Banshees.
Yeah, he's so good. I can't tell you how good he is. He's a very bright guy. So he's got great producer skills. he's technically very proficient. He's a guy that can film and edit a video himself. He's one of those. Is that normally people are either technical or creative, and he's both.
Yeah.
You know, he's very knowledgeable about music, and a lot of the music I'm not knowledgeable. A lot of the acts, kind of rock bands over the years that I just bypass me.
Yeah.
He knows and give you the history of them and who's in them, and you know, etc., etc. Whereas I'm more black music, you know, more. You know, I grew up listening more to reggae and to jazz, American, you know, black American players mainly. You know, so when I first worked with John was on the Metal Box Rebuilt album for Cleopatra.
Yeah.
And when Matt Green called me, and I'd done a couple of things for Cleopatra. I think I'd done a thing like playing bass on a Pink Floyd track or something. Which
this is the record label, you know, for those who don't know what Cleopatra is. Yeah,
Cleopatra Records. So I just had the beginnings of a relationship with them, you know, and they said to me, Matt called me and said, "Would you consider doing a new version of Metal Box?" I think he thought that I would say, "Oh, it's an iconic record. I really don't know," or maybe I might even have been offended. How dare you ask me to? But immediately I said yes for two reasons. One, increasingly the last few years, the public image stuff is on my mind, and kind of thinking of expanding it, and you know, with the benefit of hindsight and experience of making new versions of it. So I'd already done a couple of new versions of that stuff on live with my band, the Invaders of the Heart. So that was one factor. It was on my mind anyway. Number two, at the time he asked me, I was working on a community project with Jon Klien.
Right.
And that had been stymied by the lockdown with COVID. So John and I continued to do it as best we could on Zoom.
Right.
So I'm working remotely. So at the time they asked me to do Metal Box Rebuilt, I'm working with the only guy in the world who could handle Levine's guitar parts and more. You know, It was absolutely perfect timing. So that's how the relationship with John developed from this community music project that I started. And a mate of mine who I do it with for a London borough was a good friend of John and drafted him in. I've met John before. He filmed one of our gigs years ago. But then we become friends through the music community. So we're generally jamming with lots of people. Today I've been all day with him. We're doing a community thing tomorrow in a park in South London. So we just work together a lot and talk a lot about music. So we become friends.
Yeah.
So Metal Box happened. It was perfectly fortuitous, good timing. And then once that was done, Cleopatra Records came back and said, "Hey, we're really happy with this.
Yes.
It's selling really well. Would you be happy to do a new album?" And it's like, yeah. And let's do, you're a kind of rock, they're Cleopatra Records, they're a proper outfit. They understand the whole post-punk thing, really well. So it's like, okay, why give them a kind of offbeat dub record? Even though Matt's a big dub fan, to be fair, there'd be no point. I can do that any day of the week.
Yeah.
But this was a chance to really make something, have fun, write a ton of lyrics, and really extend oneself with the playing a little bit, challenge yourself to make something really special and good. It's not too difficult to do left field things, things that are going to appeal to a niche audience. It might be kind of dub folk rock or something, and it'll be a really good record. It'll have some cachet and some appeal. It's all good, but it's kind of safe. When you set your stall out, okay, let's try and be as commercial as we can without being too crass. You're challenging yourself. Do you know what I mean? You can fall flat on your face.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, I guess it kind of, it extends from that original punk where it's, bass guitars, drums, no keyboard. We don't want any of that. And I think you started to go down that track with, and you mentioned Public Image, right? So Public Image Limited was very much leading into that. So I see this as very much an extension from what you started, in that whole Pill outfit.
That's absolutely correct. When we discussed the record, it was okay, let's make something obviously with a heavy bass sound. Let's take that post-punk thing. John gets it. So it was very much working with that sound and that shape with the music, with the bass and the guitars. There's not much more to it. There's little tiny bits of keyboard and there's backing vocals, but it's very much a bass and guitar record, very much.
Now, I'd love to go back, before we talk about the new album, I'd love to go back into your past a little bit. And firstly, you were born John Wardle. How did the name Jah Wobble come up?
Sid Vicious. My name's John Wardle, John Joseph Wardle, and me and Sid were trying. I think it was near. I'm in London at the moment. I mean, we're in Chelsea, West London, and I think it was up the road from here somewhere. We were trying to get into it. It might have been Gunter Grove, possibly, but I don't think so. It was some lower floor kind of house we had the key to, and we'd been out drinking, and so we had the key, made probably to a squat somewhere.
Yeah.
And so we had to get into this squat. This was before Sid was called Sid.
Yes.
And we were lagging drunk. Sid had been drinking Newcastle Brown Ale, which he really liked. Right. That was his tipple for some reason. So, which is quite a strong beer,
Yeah.
So we were trying to get through the door, and we were lagging drunk and just couldn't get it working. I think we probably had the wrong key, and we gave up and we went somewhere else. It was too high to climb and all that. But as we were trying to get it through, he said to me, "I'll go call you Jah Wobble because you like reggae." And I said, "Oh, Fizz, but I'm going to remember that. I like that. I'm going to keep that because people won't forget it. People won't forget it." And we had that lobster. Anyway, and I didn't forget it. He probably did, but I didn't.
Jah Wobble, yeah, great name, and of course you love the reggae sound as well.
Oh, very much. Yeah, I did then, and I do now. I love dub, I love reggae. Yeah, very much.
Was that your, music of choice back then?
Yeah, very much. I mean, there was some rock I liked. I really liked the Faces. I liked Rod Stewart and the Faces. I liked Quadrophenia. There was the odd rock thing I really liked, but I really liked Stevie Wonder. I was a huge fan of, I thought he was fantastic. Thought he was really a great performer. I loved Inner Visions, but really I kind of fell in love with Desmond Decker and all that ska, Liquidator. We do a version of that now live when we do shows, So yeah, I loved all the ska, or blue beat as we called it in East London,
Right.
And there used to be a blue beat chart which kind of pretty much mirrored the normal chart, not exactly, but kind of mirrored that. And I preferred the ska versions often of those tunes, So yeah, I was very much into reggae. Yeah.
So it was a tough period back, I guess when you first met Sid and Sex Pistols were kicking off. And there's been I was reading an article where it was said that you were going through a pretty tough time, and you were literally burning furniture to keep warm.
Oh, that was it was actually. Yeah, that was kind of just a bit after the Pistols started, kind of mid probably about 76, 77. Yeah, I did set fire to furniture in the borough. It led to a big fight actually in a North London public house, although boroughs in South, and with a guy who, quite rightly really, he'd brought his furniture to the flat, to the squat, and I set fire. He wasn't there one night, and we used to all be gallivanting about all over the place, and I set fire. Yeah, I set fire to it. It didn't go well because it was very varnished woods. There was a lot of toxic smoke. There was a fireplace, to be fair. Didn't just burn it in the middle of the room. I set fire to that. A guy called Brian the Ted and another guy called Vince Bracken. And the guy in question was really upset. We're still friends. It's fine. We got made up. We had a very brutal fight, to be fair. He attacked me with a broken glass.
Right.
And I ended up, fighting him, hitting him with a pool cue. It was a proper but nasty fight. He was better fighting than me. I was quite fortunate, really. I fought kind of a rear guard battle, and then after he knocked me over a snooker table, the fellas there put the snooker cue through the doors of the largest, big Irish pub. They put the snooker cue through the handles of the doors to prevent anyone coming in. You know, and so the fight could play out to its natural conclusion. And he was really, you know, stronger than me, and he hit me, and I think we grappled, but he sent me flying over pool table, and as I landed, luckily there was a pool cue fortuitously for me on the floor, so I was able to gather my wits, and I was a bit stunned, and to make a well-timed blow. He didn't even go down when I hit him. It was unbelievable. He staggered off and was angry, like, to hell with it kind of an attitude, and went through the doors and out, and everyone was celebrating and saying well done to me. A lot of his friends, they just said to them it was the end of the fight, but then I had an eye on the door hoping he wouldn't come back, and luckily he didn't. And we stayed friends, and then I didn't see that guy for years, and I was at an AA meeting on a Saturday night, which I wouldn't already got, years ago, in West London, and we were sitting there, and we was looking at each other, and I thought, no. And he was thinking, no, and it was him, So he's a good, lovely guy.
Yeah.
And, no big deal. We both know, obviously, the booze. But, yeah, we even straight away, within a couple of days, we were friends. He's a lovely guy, actually, a very nice person. And he was quite, I've got to be, he was quite right. It was his property, and I absolutely hadn't had a second's thought or respect for that. And had set fire to it in drink on a Sunday night. But it was very cold. It was very, very cold.
Yeah.
I don't think the electric had been cut off. I don't know what the problem was. I think I wanted to generate more heat. So, yeah, set fire to stuff. So, anyway, it all worked out.
And I guess I mentioned that because, we look back now and especially, given that this show is called Long Way to the Top, it is sometimes it can be a really hard road as a musician, and you go through some really tough periods. And I guess it's sometimes good to look back and go, yeah, you know what? That was bloody tough. And look where I am now. It's probably still tough.
Right. I mean, that squad, he ended up leaving, that guy. And we talked a few weeks ago, so I needed to check a date with him. The last time I actually saw him, I've seen him since the meeting, and I saw him at the girl that used to be in that squad as well. She passed away, sadly. She was a very well-known girl on the punk scene. She passed away, as so many do from that scene, somewhat prematurely to me, not that old. Lovely. She was a lovely person. And we reacquainted at her wake. A funeral. Yet again, that was in West London. I'm out of East London originally. I'm an East End boy. But the wake was in West London. That's the last. And I needed to check the date with him, what year it was, because I'm doing the book again. My book's going to be reissued by Favours. So we had a chat. And we had a good chat about then and now. And to be honest, the atmosphere now reminds me quite a lot of the 70s.
Yes.
You feel like there's a pound note's a pound note again. People are really under financial pressure. Cost of living is going through the roof. In the 50s, a pound note was a pound note. So the TV channels, you'd have programs like Minder by the time you got into the early 80s. And all those programs were, the whole plot would be, a mate of Arthur has nicked some furniture. Arthur sent Terry to go and get the furniture, but he doesn't know it's nicked, and it's all mad. and then Arthur's mate's going to pay him £100, but in the end they only get 50, and it's terrible because Terry just gets 10 quid at the end. But that's how I remember it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I've watched the program, some stuff on YouTube on the flying squad, the Sweeney, investigating crimes, mainly in South London, of robbers, armed robberies on post offices and stuff, and this, that, and the other. And so they would say they're on the documentary, and they're chasing this gang, and they've got them under surveillance, and they've been robbing post offices, and they robbed a post office in Sydenham or something, and they stole £700.
Yeah.
And then they did another one and stole 1,200, and then they went and stole 300 from a betting shop. And you're thinking, my God, these guys were risking 8, 9 years in prison, 10 years in prison for 700 quid. And I know, obviously, the price of that money is quadruple, but it's still not that much.
No.
To risk it, modern day terms. So it's and also everything's quite politically extreme now, as it was then. You had an extreme right and extreme left, and you've kind of got that back a bit now. So it's not dissimilar. But I've come through a lot, and I look back and very grateful. And I was going to say, in that squat, that was where I kind of learnt my bass technique. All the furniture had gone, so it was either burnt or taken away. So I was left there with no furniture, apart from a headboard of a bed. The bed had gone, but a headboard was left. So I had this terrible Music Man short scale bass. I put that against the headboard and get a sound out of it, So it made your fingers very strong very early on.
Yes.
If you can get a sound from bass under those circumstances. And I'd had the amp and the wire, the lead, but I sold them for beer money. I think to purchase Valium as well, probably for the come downs. Was used to take Speckley Blues in those days. You get very high, so the Valium and the cider would help bring you down. So I think I only had the amp for 5 minutes before I sold it along with the lead. But at that time, I did have a bass book. So you want to learn bass, and you could learn to play bass like American Patrol, the Glenn Miller tune, stuff like that.
Yep.
I wasn't interested. I just thought, and I don't need to do that. I want to play patterns, and I just worked out geometrical shapes from the keyboards. Right. And you see that mirrored in the artwork I do with the cover art of the album, the new album. Is
very kaleidoscopic.
With kind of geometrical sort of shapes. I still like to impose patterns on the world.
Yes. Now you started obviously 45 years ago, as the bass player for Johnny Rotten's Public Image Limited, and I mean you were there for a couple of years. Do you think that whole period really set you up in terms of your style and your bass playing, because it really shows through, especially in this new album, that style?
Yeah, very much. Because I was a novice, I learned to play, but I wouldn't play in any other bands. I wasn't really I was a bit snobby. I didn't really want to play. I didn't really like punk music. I had a different kind of an idea for a different kind of shape and texture to it all. I didn't like the kind of caudal approach. I wanted a really rhythmic approach, music in patterns, whether it's drums or even keyboard parts. You wanted patterns and textures, colours, So I was listening to a lot of electronic music in that squat as well at that time. It's quite a freaky time. I was very solitary, at that time. And then I kind of had to leave the squat. One thing led to another. Then Johnny Lydon left the Pistols. The Pistols broke up, and he asked me and Keith to form this new band with him. And it was a great time for me because I had a very definite certainty about what I wanted to play and how I wanted to play it. And I presented them, but I could play the bass lines and they loved them. Keith could easily have said, "Oh, look, can you just change that note here and change that note here?" Maybe getting me to play in a way more suited to chords going over it, He could have done that, and it could have pulled the carpet from beneath my feet, really. But he didn't. They didn't change any of my bass lines. They liked the lines and worked with them. So it was fantastic. There was talk that I'd been considered probably for 5 minutes to be in the Sex Pistols playing bass. It's been terrible because, it was much better to go into Public Image and to come up my big bass lines. I wouldn't be able to do that with the Pistols because you've got guitar chords. You can't, it's oil and water.
Two very different bands.
Very different things. So as a novice, I was able to come in without any pressure apart from the pressure I put on myself, and just develop naturally, you know, and to have a confidence in what I was doing, you know, which was wonderful.
What was the reason for you leaving Pill?
Oh, I tell you what, it'd be easy to say, was there any reasons to stay? And I couldn't see any reasons to stay.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
We only done about 19 shows. They weren't interested to do shows. Yeah. So that done my head in because I wanted to be playing shows.
Yeah.
I think we did less than 20 shows. I might be wrong, but I don't think I'm far wrong. The business side of it was terrible. Even getting your wages was a major pain in the arse.
Yeah.
Just getting your 60 quid a week was a pain in the arse getting it. So I left. Come back from America, went round there. The money was kept in a shoebox in Gunter Grove in a cubby hole in a ground floor room. So I went in there, very determined. Right, I've been messed about by you lot. I'm not having this. So I went in, got the shoebox, which was full of high denomination notes. I think £50 note, which was a lot of money then. You know, I think it was more than 20s. I think it was £50 notes. I think it's probably the highest you could get. I would think.
Yeah,
maybe they had £100 notes then. I don't know, but I think it was 50s. And I went off to America again on holiday and hired a car, went and drove virtually coast to coast in a Thunderbird. Right. Which was a wonderful motor, and went to America and this, that, and the other, and then got some money in from solo stuff from Japan and one this, that, and the other, and kind of I was very happy when I left. But obviously, it'd been a very important time for me, and in 2 years, a lot happened. You know, I become a player, so I was very, as I say, I can realise I was very fortunate. The business side of it was bad. It took 16 and a half years to get the publishing royalties sorted out.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
So wow. it was a normal kind of nonsense crap you get in the music business. Yeah. Anyway, none of that matters, you know, because I was able to sort of get myself set up in music. Because you have to think I was living in squats and it wasn't good, and I was back home temporarily in mum and dad's council flat, and they were saying, you know, you telling me because the rule was you bring £20 a week in or you sling your hook.
Right.
You know, that was it.
Yeah.
And it was there was no mucking about. So it was like so when Pill happened, it kind of saved me baiting for having to get out. And I don't think I ever went in another squat. I ended up getting a little council place myself in Shadwell in East London. So it all worked out. But anyway, so Pill got me playing, got a certain style going for me, got very unhappy with it all. You know, with the atmosphere, and there were certain other things. You know, Keith was on drugs. Keith Levine. You know, we all taking drugs, to be fair, but different drugs at different times. That was probably the problem. You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, he you know, it was getting really bad, and it was just a nonsense. Somebody needed to put their foot on the ball.
Yeah.
And you know, I just didn't think it was being well run. There wasn't management, which was probably good in a way, not having management in so far as we were able to do a very extreme record with Metal Box. If you had a sort of typical music business manager, you probably wouldn't have got away with that. So it all kind of works out.
Yeah.
I left Pill, didn't really know what was going to happen. And I thought for 5 minutes, well, that's me done. You know, I've had my little time in the game and whatever. But then I immediately started working with Holger and Jackie from Can. Yes. So we did, work with them. We did How Much Are They EP, that become an album. And then I did Snake Charmer working with The Edge from U2. So actually, this world opened up immediately for me. You know,
there's some big names.
It was really good.
Yeah, there were some big names.
Oh, yeah, it was. Oh, Holger, Jackie's. They're the two most impressive people I've ever met in music, especially Jackie. He was like a master player. It was incredible. We've become very tight. I really like Jackie a lot. We've become very close, musical brothers in a way, you know. Yeah. And The Edge from U2 was a nice fellow, and was, you know, and I got my own Odyssey started. I started Invaders of the Heart Mark 1 and this, that. So it was all good. I screwed up within a few years because I went back on the powders. When I left Pill, I stopped the powders. I went back on the powders. I was drinking really heavy, screwed up. Never really stopped playing music. But I had a couple of years out in the wilderness, really, while I was still developing my sound, which is good for me. So I come back into it, age, in the late 80s, when the rave thing started and Andy Weatherall come out of a remix, and I was back in with it all. I'm like Forrest Gump. I've just popped up at the important times and places.
So here I am. Yeah.
I was in, in the 80s, I was in New York as hip hop started. I was there. It was incredible. Around all the loft scene, like Forrest Gump. I just pop up when everything's happening.
The Forrest Gump of the music industry.
Yeah.
Now, your new album, A Brief History of Now. I've got to say that even though it harkens back to the punk era, it addresses some really important themes, I guess, that have really been thrust upon us, especially in the last few years. I mean, what was the impetus? What was the start of the ball rolling for this album?
Right. Cool. There's a lot to talk about, Shane.
Okay.
There's a lot of tracks there for starters.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's start with a single, Last Exit.
Yep.
Stuff like Last Exit, the title track of Beef History Now, they're pretty much sort of, and the one about coming home, the kind of, there's like a country and western song towards the end, like a reggae feel, but it's like country and western, about liberation. This is the love, the revolution. That song. I forgot the bloody title, but those three pretty American. I think because it's Cleopatra Records, it's American label. It just inspired me, or made me write some of the stuff with a real sort of piano to America, really.
Because Last Exit, you actually say, this is America, and it's
this is America.
It's a scary song when you look at the lyrics.
American culture is scary.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting as well.
Yeah.
It's dopamine city, So some bloke tweeted today, the bloke from the Midwest sent me a tweet. Well, that's a great song, Jah Wobble, great. Yeah. But what about UK's faults? And it's like, mate, it's not. I'm not attacking America as such, It's not. I'm not even implying that. It's just a snapshot of things of how American culture. You as an Aussie, me as a Brit. We're formed very much by American culture. That's been the dominant culture, really. So you're very informed by that culture. So at my age to write, so I'm going to show America's horrible, and and it needs to be cut down to size or something. I absolutely don't think that. So the whole thing is it's scary, but it's very exciting, and the thing about modern culture, all those digital platforms are based in America, just about, and it's all, these YouTube shorts and TikTok, and I think TikTok's probably owned by China, I think, but whatever, it's all just, I'm addicted to those YouTube shorts now, just dopamine hit, dopamine
it is,
hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, and that's why the video, when the lovely guy's a very quiet guy, Vicente, that doesn't, you just say a few things and he gets on with it. The guy did the video, and I kind of just sort of said to him, just, bang, 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 these are the images, and he really got it, it's just dopamine, 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 and, big loud, big explosions and all that are exciting, and Last Exit, obviously, I remember I'd see Last Exit to wherever you're driving down the highways in America, but of course there's the book Last Exit to Brooklyn, and that kind of American literature really excited me, and I was very well read as a young man, Hemingway, Steinbeck, I can't even remember the guy that wrote Last Exit, but all this modern Updike, all this modern American literature, and it was all this big country that's very exciting. So all this was an angle, and the whole frontiers thing, it's quite a young country, really, and of course they kind of they broke away you know, they had the revolution and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but it's pretty young. And the whole frontiers thing is, you know, I find very interesting. So it's just a sort of an observation of all that.
Yeah.
And it does pertain, you know, something like Last Exit, the song, pertains to samsara, you know, in Buddhist sense, you know, this illusionary external world, you know, that's both heaven and it, you know, it's hell in a way, you know, it wears you out. There's no happiness to be found in it, but it's made from the same stuff as heaven, you know. If you don't get attached to the movie and you're just in it, you know, it's beautiful as well somehow,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
So it's just a taste of all that. I'm not trying to say a particular thing in it, you know. It's just as much as what I'm saying, and as much as everything is, wow, what a trip, you know.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is amazing.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's scary, it's this, and of course it's all illusionary anyway. So that's one angle. With something like I Am, which is the videos, I'll send you the video. If you give me your email, I'll give you a preview because it's out tomorrow. I'll send you that.
Great.
You know, when it comes out. But anyway, it's a terrific video. Yet again, this Vicente guy. And that really is deeply spiritual. You know, I tried to write a song that's the basis of spirituality in a way. I am, you know, I am before I'm this or I'm that. Even before any gender or any kind of conditioning, I am, you know. And so, you know, I am, and maybe there's something before I am, but I am is that presence, that awareness that you have as a baby. Everything. So we've got this samsaric world, the dopamine thing, hit. This world, explosions, hate, love, war, passing clouds. You know, continuous movement inside and outside. But something observes all that.
Yes.
For that movement to be observed, there must be something that isn't moving. You know, that's still that observes it. I'm not the same guy, personality-wise, as I was 2 hours ago exactly, or last week or the week before that. We're all continuously changing, but something does stay, not exactly fixed or permanent, but there's some all-pervasive presence that is the same as when you were a baby, is the same as last Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock, is the same as 3 minutes ago, is the same as 2 seconds. I am just the awareness, you know. Innate nature, if you like. It's formless, it's colorless, you can't find it, it's got no exact location. You might claim it's the brain, but think again, you know. If you think it just lives there, then you get into, you know, we get into the fallacy that somehow spirit came from matter at some point. It was the Big Bang, and then matter came, and at some point, we can't say exactly when, but consciousness appeared. Really?
Okay.
Come on, you know, it's got to be consciousness. Come on, let's just think this through. Consciousness has to be sort of ever unborn, really.
You know, to be there from the very beginning,
Well, even before beginnings, you know, you've got this clear awareness. No center. It has no center. It has no edge. So anyway, that's basically what that tune's about, and it's about what, you know. Going through Tesco's, what that's kind of saying is, you know, you're going through Tesco's and then suddenly, you know, you're flying high above the tin goods aisle, and you're flying above the River Nile. That all this stuff is so malleable. This external world, just it all melts away. You know, it melts away as you become more in the I am. That permeates this, and my I am's the same as yours. It's beautiful. I'm not saying, oh man, we're all one, you know, we're all in this fixed, permanent, eternal, happy, clappy state at all. You know, words, linguistic designations, you know, they just run out of track, words that, you know, they can't cover all this. But anyway, that's what that tune's about, you know. And then something like
what about Wrong Side of the Line? Now that interested me.
Right. Wrong Side of the Line. That was written for a famous British football manager, as part of a community idea charity raising thing. He's a lovely guy. He's a mate of mine. I don't think he's ever heard the track because he said to me that those guys are always busy, right? They're always dealing with some issue with injuries or some terrible issue, or they've gone to a new club. But he's a really lovely guy, good mate of mine. So I don't think he's ever heard the track, you know.
You've got a
So
really
we were
great
left.
chorus underlying the whole song, haven't you?
Yeah, well, that's right. It's quite a strange sort of it's not your normal verse, chorus,
No.
but it's very funky. Anyway, I'd done like the backing track for this guy, and John did a guide vocal, and John's like, I just done this crazy guide vocal. And obviously, you're going to write. I said, yes, I'm going to write some proper sort of words. And then I heard his thing, and I really liked it. And he doesn't know anything about football, but it was like, John, you don't know anything about football, but your words are better than mine on this.
Right.
So I did the spoken word stuff, stay switched on, and what's it all about? Money? Have you got enough money? And it suddenly turns into starts to take on a different meaning. It's addressing in a way you could, spot footballers maybe, we've got a lot, but actually it's not. It kind of goes beyond that, and it becomes a rather menacing thing, the wrong side of the line. Obviously, that's talking about the white line of the football pitch, and don't step across it unless you're serious. But it becomes a wider, deeper thing, and that's what I liked about it. Going to step across that. If you're going to go in and be serious in life in something, you better know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's how I took it as. Yeah,
that's exactly what it's about. You better know what you're about if you're going to step across that line. You better know you're on the wrong side of the line. You would have met people in your game. You think, no, you're not serious. You're just playing at this.
Yeah,
you're not serious.
All the time.
It's got that kind of thing to it. And all that stuff. Actually, when I'm saying, stay switched on, is actually joking apart. Yeah, you better stay switched on.
Yeah.
In life.
Yeah.
So that was it. So that John was like, kind of, do you really like it? I'm like, this is the dark horse. I'm telling you, I don't care what anybody says. And it's one of the very few tracks with a guest player, our mate Anthony Hopkins, not the actor, but the guy we do the community thing with. He played guitar on it as well.
Right.
I think he put his guitar down before John even. And so it was because it was going to be like the community thing sort of thing was my original idea, but it become this other thing. Yeah. And the funny thing is, Matt said to me, Matt Green, hey, you know what track I really like? I said, not start at wrong side of the line. Said, yeah, exactly. So me and John, and last night, it's funny, this is a trend because I did an interview with a girl Aisha for Post Punk magazine. Right. And that was the track she liked.
I think it's a standout track, and it's obviously not a track that's going to get played on radio because the underlying. Well, what I heard, and you might be completely different, but I actually heard fuck the whole time.
You know what? I've not even. I didn't know it was that. You might. It's not. I'm not being funny, Shane. I'm going to phone John tonight. Not too late. Say, John, and he might say to me, "No, I never said." But he might say, "Are you fucking joking? What do you mean you didn't notice? I was singing fuck." So I'm going to have to check that out. It might be.
It might be.
I honestly don't know.
But it's just it's got this tension in it. It's like, and it's just sort of like it winds you up. So that's my
but
definite.
It's got a
pick.
gothicy thing with it, because I've done it on probably, unlike nearly every track, it was written with a basis with the organ. I wrote it on an organ, believe it or not.
Right.
So it's still got the bare organ part on it, I think. But it's a strange. And John was very much, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's really got." And John said, you were talking about making something that's kind of got a commercial. This is really not a commercial arrangement. I said, I don't. It's one of those things that it defies the rules, but it's good.
Yeah.
It's the exception to the rule,
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. That's like, I've only done 2 interviews and you're the second one, Shane, and you're the second person to say that's a special track. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's my thoughts. The other one that I'd love to talk about, because Blur actually came out with a new single and a new album, and the single that was their first one was called "The Narcissist," and you've interestingly got as the last track on your album "Socially Functioning Psychopath." As you go through the music industry, or as we go through life, that we meet a lot of these people who are socially functioning psychopaths. And we don't even know that they're psychopaths until It's too late.
Well, I think this is the age of the narcissist
Yeah.
for sure. And it's sometimes difficult to tell narcissists from psychopaths.
Yeah.
I suppose the main difference, as a psychotherapist would say, is that narcissists do have feelings, but they're only for themselves.
Yeah.
Where psychopaths don't have any feelings, which is when you get that weird thing, they'll throw themselves off of walls just to break their arm, and then they're so disassociated. Anyone else would dread the pain of a broken bone, but they're sort of like looking at their compound fracture of their arm. Okay, and just poking it even. Do you know what I mean?
Geez.
You know,
Yeah.
you know, um, because they're just so completely disassociated, and there's something sort of evil,
Yes.
obviously, about them. Many psychopaths, maybe all psychopaths, that they, there's some sort of compulsion to kill, and that horrible cold curiosity, watching someone gurgle to death on their blood or something. But you do get people, because it's a common thing now, isn't it, with people that you'll hear people say, "Oh, he's a complete bloody psychopath," and they mean somebody in business or something.
Yeah.
And I think now people tend to be in this time of Me Too and all that. Everyone's very exposed.
Yeah.
I suspect, having said that really good narcissists know exactly how to kind of cover their tracks and come out as victims often, I suppose, in all this. But I do think I think now, the time when bosses could hide some sort, you get those bosses of the big companies that are sort of really, it's an accepted thing, isn't it? I think, or it's a commonly held theory that narcissists and psychopaths can be good in the boardroom, because they're ruthless.
Yeah. Let's hire him. He's a complete narcissist. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think people are, so it was, they could get away with it, and it would probably be, it would be explained, well, that's what a lot of bosses are like, aren't they? They've got a lot of money and they behave in a really terrible way. But now people are more likely to sort of hold them to account, I think, or hopefully. And that song's just basically, in a poppy, joyful kind of humorous way, highlighting that,
Let's talk about Masters of Time.
Well, I've met loads of posh public schoolboys in music, in bands and around bands.
Yes.
And that's a sort of an amalgam, and it's inspired by public schoolboys. So it's an idea. It's not really a person, but it's kind of inspired by a lot of the public schoolboys I've known, of dropping their H's on occasion, as the injury, I think it was, you said, so, and holidaying in the Caribbean and everything. And this thing where the boys from mill towns afar come to worship them, their worship czar. And so often I've met these working class boys who adore these public school boys, and they have no idea with the class structure how these ghastly public school boy blokes who singers or in bands or whatever, they wouldn't piss on those kids, these fellas, if they were on fire. It's so distant and whatever clue, and these poor schmucks get, and I've seen it quite a bit, and I just wanted to kind of write a song so that song is inspired by the public school boys in the music game, basically. And it's just poking a bit of fun there with them and all that, but it's a fictional kind of, it's always like a fictional character you could imagine, it's not kind of about one specific person by any means, but is basically kind of poking fun at the public school boys. And of course it has a wider ramification because this country is run by daft public school boys, like Boris Johnson and people. So yeah, I'm just taking a mickey out of them, really.
And it's kind of like the antithesis of the whole punk scene, really, isn't it? I mean, punk is really sort of base level. Let's get down to tin tacks. And if you don't like what I'm saying, well, you can fuck off.
Yeah, but the public schoolboys are really good because what they'll do at the time of punk is think, right, I've got to get on with the punk thing. So first of all, I've got to change how I sound, innit? You know, they get a fake Cockney accent going or whatever, you know, and they'd have an attitude, right, what do we need to do? Right, we need to get a manager like this. We need to dress like that, you know, so we need to get some safety pins. We need that kind of a... And they do. That drummer's got to go because he just doesn't fit in. We need this drummer. That guy's going to go because, you know, he's on drugs, not having him in the band. So he goes, you know, you know, or he drinks too much or whatever, you know, everything's just, you know, kind of, you know, they're so used to sort of taking command, you know, and this confidence to sort of, and kind of, you know, often kind of paint by numbers as they go, shamelessly, you know. So that was a song dedicated to sort of tosser public schoolboys, really, to be honest.
It's almost like an episode of The Young Ones, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a bit of a, it's kind of pastiche, really. Yeah. I'd like, hopefully, the album's a success, and I'd like to do a video a wrong side of the line and of, I mean, I think Matt would be inclined to do that if we could, and Masters of Time. I'd like to, you know, I'd like to do a video. It'd be great fun. I don't think you could do it green screen. You'd have to find the location, and you know, I'd love to play the part of the public schoolboy, get a syrup, you know, and they would sort of sweat back hair, you know, and you know, lounging around, you know, mate, sunny climes.
You're like me. We need hair first, though, to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I'm hoping that happen. You know,
some good CGI.
I wear a syrup wherever I can, mate, because it's fun. You know, yeah.
Well, look, I really hope that the album goes well and reception is great for it, and comes out. Well, it's out now. And where can you go to buy the album from most of the online stores, or is there a better place to go to?
Yeah, I would think Cleopatra get it out everywhere. Distributed by RSK in Britain. Yeah. I'm not sure distributors will be around the world, but yeah, be on Amazon and any online stores will have it. Their distribution's pretty good. They're not mucking about. Yeah, you know, and it'd be an all digital. They released, I think, the same time digitally as well. So it's all good. It'll be out there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic, John! Thank you so much for your time, and it's been great chatting with you about not just about the new album, but also about your incredible history too.
No, my pleasure, mate. My pleasure.
All right.
Thanks, Jane.
See ya.
All the best, mate.
Thanks, John.
See ya. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Long Way to the Top. Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast, and head over to Facebook at the Long Way to the Top podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.